always thought I could save the world. Now look at it.
Hello and what is up, guys? Another Rip Van Winkle video for you here. And today we're going to talk about Deus Ex Mankind Divided. So this game might be a little bit old for some of you. It came out in 2016, which is a while ago now, not quite a decade, but we're approaching there pretty soon. The first game in the series, Deus Ex, released in 2000, which is already 23 years ago now. But I wanted to talk about this game specifically because I think it is, in my opinion, one of the most interesting games of the last generation. Now that we're on the ninth generation, this is the 8th generation that we're talking about. Okay, so the gameplay you guys are seeing right now is from the beginning of the game, kind of the tutorial area in Dubai, and I thought I didn't want to show that many gameplay spoilers or story spoilers just because I think this game is really amazing, and you should really go into it kind of blind from your first playthrough, though I would highly recommend playing at least Deus Ex not Mankind Divided, but Human Revolution. That is the prequel or the first game in this, the Adam Jensen series, and hopefully it'll be a trilogy, hopefully. But right now there's only 2. But I'd highly recommend playing that first. And I'm probably going to do a video on that later this year at some point, so stay tuned for that. Make sure you smash the like button and hit the bell and, all that kind of YouTube-y stuff. So I'm really not going off a script here. I'm just kind of doing free form, like, that's my style. I'm not a big fan of writing a bunch of stuff down in Word documents and just spitting out to you. I want to give you my free form thoughts, stuff like that. You want some interesting content on this crazy website. So yeah, let's start with the setting of Deus Ex Mankind Divided. This spoiler alert for Human Revolution, but it takes place after the AUG incident, which is like when all the augmented individuals got hijacked by the signal from the Illuminati. And Adam Jensen obviously, he wasn't, and he was basically the one who stopped that. He wasn't exactly, like, all AUGs have been kind of, what do you want to call it? Not segregated, but like ostracized, I suppose. It is kind of a flimsy plot device, if you ask me, just because I think it really could have gone more into the income inequality side of things, just because it's a big issue right now. But they went with a more of the clumsy Civil War era racism thing, which is, Civil War obviously terrible, definitely about slavery, not about states' rights or anything like that. But I do think they could have handled it a little bit better in terms of making, like, because nobody really chooses, nobody wakes up and is an augmented person, like you chose to do that. But if you had it more like saying, like, oh, the poor people had to get augmented because, that's the only way they could survive in the world, and the rich people got to stay human, per se, I think it would have worked. But, in the first game, they didn't really mention anything like that. It was more even the rich people who got augmented and the poor people who couldn't. Though I do remember, if you're talking about the very end, I think the very end mission, throughout the game in Human Revolution, you do see posters for not the Hyperion project, but the one in Antarctica. I forget the name right now, but I'll get it back to you. I'll get it back to you guys later. But you'll see posters for that and saying, like, oh, free augmentations for if you come and work for this thing. So I think that they really could have played that up and saying, like, oh, well, the poor people had to get augmentations to survive in this new world, and now, like, they've been scapegoated by the Illuminati. So it's more of a class warfare type thing. But they didn't really do that, which I'm kind of a little bit iffy on. That's the only problem with this game is the kind of the setup and context of it, if that makes sense. I wanted to make a quick note about the gameplay you guys are seeing here. This is like the new game plus mode, where I have basically all the augmentations. So that's why you're seeing that many augmentations basically being unlocked from the start. Also, I am playing the PC version of this game. I believe it's on maxed out settings, so if you're interested in what this game looks like running at the top of the line hardware, it should look pretty similar to this, even though my PC isn't really top of the line anymore. But yeah, I mean, I can put my PC specifications in the comments if you guys are interested in that. Just let me know if you want to see those. Also, I'd highly recommend playing this game on PC just because of the control options. You know, the keyboard and mouse just makes it so much better because you can easily switch weapons. And this is a complex game if you really want to get into the mechanics of it. I highly recommend having, you know, a keyboard and mouse for this, just because the controls I feel like are just so much better. Even though there are some third-person segments, as you guys are seeing here in the gameplay, it's mostly first-person. So, you know, I'm a big advocate for mouse and keyboard for first-person games. So, yeah, I definitely recommend, you know, if you have a PC, play it. Though I'm not against playing it on console. In fact, I first played the game on console on Xbox One back in the day. But I have to admit, the loading times were atrocious on that console. So I would really recommend. It doesn't need to be even installed on an SSD. I think if you have a decent enough computer, I think it'll load pretty fast. But I had it on external storage back in the day on Xbox One, and that just tanked the loading times. So I don't know if it's optimized a little bit better now, but I would highly recommend. Like I said, I keep on saying, you know, play it on PC if you can have the options. And, you know, most PCs should be able to play it, even if it's not on maxed out settings. I think it actually might be on Mac now. I'm not sure if Feral Interactive have put it on Mac. They've put a couple of Eidos Montreal games on Mac, such as some of the Tomb Raider games, and some of I'm not sure what else they've put on there, but it would behoove you to check what platforms it's on. I know it's on Xbox One, PS4, not Switch, unfortunately, and obviously because of the backwards compatibility, it should be on Xbox Series S and X, and as well as PS5. There have been no next-gen updates, just because, you know, this company was recently bought by the Embracer Group, I think it is. So they haven't really been active with any of Eidos' properties on the last gen. So unfortunately, if you want like 60 FPS, you will need a PC. So let's start talking about the mechanics of the game a little bit more. As you've been seeing throughout my gameplay footage here, that like there's really a lot of depth. You know, you can customize what weapons and what ammo they have, and there's also, of course, the standard, do it your way, in terms of, do you want to like shoot them or stealth them, or, you know, is it going to be lethal or non-lethal. I skipped over the intro where it gives you a choice on what kind of weapons you want, but I mean, in both games, they give you a choice of whether, you know, you want, like, they give you a starting weapon of either like a long range, short range, and then lethal or non-lethal. So I think it's really interesting. I know a lot of games do that now, but I think this was one of the pioneers that let you kind of do that, especially the original. I haven't actually played the original from 2000, but I think it lets you kind of do that. But I really enjoyed Eidos' take on this kind of gameplay. The hacking is also really good. I think it's a lot better than the first game, or like the previous game, I suppose, where like you would have to you click on different nodes, and then like it's kind of like a little mini game. I really like the gameplay variety in this. Another thing that I think that's really interesting about the gameplay in Deus Ex Mankind Divided, and also its prequel, is the RPG system, where every action nets you a certain amount of XP. And that's kind of, you know, people don't associate that with shooters so much, but I think it actually works very well in this case, because it will reward you for taking different paths throughout the environment. And also, you know, I think it actually gives you more XP for taking enemies down in like more unique ways, I think. Like, for instance, I do think that doing it in a non-lethal way and doing it without like alerting guards will give you more XP than doing it in a kind of like a shooty way. But I do think as well that if you just kind of go all out and, you know, just murder them all, like be a kind of Doom-esque type guy in this game, I think it'll also give you a bunch of benefits, because, you know, you will be able to explore more of the environment and get more XP that way. So I really think it's one of the better games that actually allows you to really customize your playstyle without having one feel more better than the other. A bit of a spoiler for the end of this game. I won't go into any details or specifics, but there is a really amazing section or sequence toward the end of this game where you basically have to do everything without being seen to get the best ending. And that has been one of the most cool sequences I have ever played in a video game. I just felt like such a badass, especially because, you know, if you don't do it right, like you will be penalized, but like of course you don't really know that. It's just kind of an optional mission in that regard. It's kind of like, hey, you should do this, but it doesn't really tell you the significance of it until a little bit later in the ending. So I really think that's just really cool. So if you guys are thinking about playing this game, I would highly recommend speccing out a little bit of this more stealthy path. So that would be the invisibility, the quiet movement. Of course, it doesn't have to be non-lethal, I don't think, though it kind of helps to have non-lethal stuff, just because they tend to be more silent than the lethal stuff. Because, I mean, you can have suppressors on your pistols and whatnot, but there are some really cool augmentations, especially the experimental ones, which I haven't really got to in this gameplay yet, because, you know, it's kind of tied to the story a little bit, so I won't really go into that much, but they have some really cool new ones that are exclusively non-lethal, and I'd highly recommend getting those.
But I take mine with cream and 2 sugars while you're asking.
Okay, so I'm gonna skip over the ending of the intro sequence here in Dubai because I want to talk about Prague specifically.
Konečná stanice Růžičkovo nádraží. Příjezd za 5 minut.
Miller, it's Jensen. Just getting off the train now.
Copy that. We'll debrief when you get in. You coming straight to the office?
Unless there's a problem at a checkpoint.
Your papers should be in order. Just keep your head down. Miller out.
Never mind. What a horrible thing to think.
Now, I think Prague is, for me, probably my most favorite hub world out of any game that has any sort of kind of hub and spoke design. Just because, A, I have been there before. I've actually been to the real life city of Prague, so I think it's, which is a very beautiful, by the way. I'd highly recommend going to visit that. But B, I just think it's so beautiful and well designed, and it also, you can use a metro in it, which I love. I love everything to do with metros and public transportation and everything. So that's just kind of me geeking out over that aspect of the game. In fact, the metro ticket dispensers or ticket machines you guys are seeing here right now are basically an exact recreation of the ones they have in Prague. So it's just kind of cool that they kept that detail. The metro map, on the other hand, isn't very representative of the actual Prague metro map at all. Though I understand that they have to make a game as opposed to like an exact recreation of the city. Another thing that I kind of want to talk about right now is that I really hope that one of you guys in the audience here is good at C#, just because, you know, there are extended missions for this game that were basically cut from the final release, just because Eidos was really forcing, or the company that owned Eidos was really forcing the studio to work on Marvel's Avengers at that point. So some of the missions that were supposed to be available from the main game were kind of split off and made it into like little hub missions. Though strangely enough, you kind of are plopped into the metro station. Though that it kind of gives me the impression that they were supposed to be accessible from the main metro map. So I'd love if any of you would have the skills or could maybe DM me on how I could go about integrating the DLC missions into the main game. I know this might not be possible at all, but I'd love to do this just because I love this game, and I really hope, you know, I don't think there's any possibility that they're going to do a director's cut like they did with Human Revolution, where in that game they had it so, like, they had a DLC mission that was integrated into the main storyline, even though when originally it wasn't. You know, they kind of put it right in the middle, which I think is kind of cool because I like having that story content in the middle of the game as opposed to, you know, somewhere at some sort of menu outside of it. So, like I said, again, if any of you really know how to do that or would like to show me or have the skills to show me how to do that and kind of integrate the DLC into the main game, just let me know, because I've kind of played around with it and I just haven't actually ever had the chance to start really working on it. But yeah, if any of you guys have those skills, please let me know, because I think it'd be amazing to work on this game. Just make it like an amazing game even better.
Known as North Gate, leads through the remains of the fortification that surrounded Starimescu, more commonly known as the Old City. The wall itself was brought down in the 13th century, at least where it wasn't incorporated into the surrounding infrastructure. Prague has always taken pride in embracing progress. Also, land in the past. This plaza also offers a view of the river and the opposite bank, as well as the best view of one of the most distinctive buildings in Prague, the Palisades Blade. How is that for merging the old and the new?
Moving back to the city of Prague, something I find really interesting about the Eidos's depiction of the Czech capital in this game is the mix between cyberpunk and the old European aesthetics. So, you know, I feel like, especially in most recent cyberpunk games, even in Deus Ex Mankind, or sorry, Deus Ex Human Revolution, you know, a lot of it was either set in America or Asia, so you get it's very common cyberpunk settings. But I feel like very few games in the cyberpunk genre are set in Europe, where you have a lot of old European-esque architecture. So I think it's pretty beautiful how they managed to mesh those two things together, as if you just saw here from the lady giving the tour. You have the Palisade Blade extending over the Vltava River. And there's basically a JPEG of Charles Bridge in the background that you can't really see during the day, but you kind of can see during the night. Unfortunately, there isn't a day-night cycle in this game, but you do visit the city at multiple times of day and night, which is kind of cool. Okay, so the last thing I wanted to talk about regarding the city of Prague is basically the final level, and this is going to be a bit of a spoiler, but you know, I feel like if you've gotten through the video this far, you probably have played at least a little bit of this game, and or at least you know, want to try it out. So here it is. So basically, the final level of this game takes place in a city on lockdown, and that's Prague. So the city of Prague is locked down. So what has been the hub area for, I don't know how many hours, depending on how many side quests you guys have done, is now like an entire Deus Ex level. And I think it's really cool how they managed to kind of fit like a hub area with its, like, you know, different, because normally hub areas you wouldn't really think of as being levels in and of themselves, just because you know, their entire purpose is to connect to other levels. But in this way, they made it so, you know, the hub level becomes a level at the very end. When it's like full on lockdown, you have to sneak around everywhere. And of course, you don't have to sneak around. You could go around murdering all the police guards. But I kind of do a very role-playing-esque thing in this game, where I don't think Adam Jensen would murder all those police officers, just because, you know, you have pretty decent interactions with some of them throughout the game. So yeah, I think that's one of the most genius things this game does, is kind of turn the hub area into an actual like very Deus Ex-esque level. Because it's huge, you know, like the city of Prague. It's what I love about it is that it's not like huge in like the Just Cause sense, where it's just a massive level where you can play around and do whatever you want. It's like huge and dense. Because like every little thing has like some sort of secret, and like I kind of skipped over a part where we're in the sewer and kind of popped out somewhere else. But yeah, I really think that was a genius move by them. So yeah, that's basically all my thoughts on the city of Prague in this game. I love to talk about more locations, but I don't want to go into spoilers or anything. because I want to keep this game fresh for as many new people as possible. But yeah, please like and subscribe. Thanks again for watching. I really enjoyed making this video, so I hope you guys have enjoyed watching it as well. I will put any and all corrections in the video description, and also an address where you guys can contact me if you guys are interested in modding the DLC missions back into the main game together. But yeah, if there's nothing else, I think I'll sign off. This is Rip Van Winkle here, and this has been my thoughts on Deus Ex Mankind Divided.